Hey everybody, Jillian here for Illustrated Faith's Print and Pray Shop with a new Bible journaling process video. Today I'm going to be using some different media techniques, using some texture paste, stencils, printables, paint, all sorts of things. So I pulled these two Illustrated Faith stencils to work with today, along with Isabella's new printable set called Seasons that's in the Print and Pray shop. So I have both the ephemera sheets here and then the patterned paper. I was really inspired by the patterned paper. It's my favorite craft supply, and so I definitely want to include lots of it on my page today. I'm going to start by trimming it down with my Fiskars paper trimmer. You could very easily use scissors. This just gives me a straighter line. So I'm picking 3 patterns to use today, and I just wanted to give you guys a quick tip. When mixing patterns, be sure to take note of the scale. So this one is the largest scale, and I'm mixing it with like a medium scale and then a smaller one. So if I had 2 large ones or 2 small ones, they would be competing with each other. But when you add different sized patterns in corresponding colors, then they just work really well together. So I'm using my Interleaved Journaling Bible because I love treating this like a scrapbook layout, and that's kind of where I was going with today's page. I had printed some of Isabella's ephemera on clear sticker paper, and so I'm just putting these florals with the patterned paper, trying to figure out where everything's going to go. Of course, I need something to hold my journaling, and I decided to use this vintage library card that's in a coordinating color. I trimmed off the top because it was a little too big for what I wanted to use it for today. And then realized as I was working with these printables, the pieces from the Rooted Devotional Kit go really well with it, so I pulled those out and put those to the side. Now that I have an idea of where the papers and things like that are going to live on my page, I'm going to move to the painting portion of today's process. So I've got some Liquitex texture paste, this piece of plastic that came from some stamp packaging, and then 2 colors of Liquitex Heavy Body acrylic paint. You could use any acrylic paint that you have. I am deciding here to go with this like mustard color instead of the sienna, because it's a better match for the printables. And I'm going to take some of the acrylic paint and just mix it up with the texture paste until there's no more texture paste left. I used a palette knife. You could very easily use a paint card. This just gives me a little bit more control. So I wanted to have these divided diamonds up in the top right corner and the bottom left corner, kind of diagonally flanking my cluster of paper and journaling. So I'm being very careful to only put the texture paste mixed with acrylic paint through a few diamonds. I don't just want to slather it on there because I didn't want that many, and just wanted it to be kind of clean. Make sure that if you do use texture paste that you clean your tools right away. This stuff dries really quickly and it's difficult to get off. I actually haven't been able to successfully get it off once it's dried. So I just put down a baby wipe and then put down my stencil, took another baby wipe, and wiped everything off of my palette knife and my stencils. Before I get to putting down the patterned paper, I decided to use some of the rooted stamps in my background to kind of peek out behind those elements, and then I'll start working on my title. So this is the TopKnots Alpha stamp set from Illustrated Faith. I believe at the moment it's sold out, but I am confident that Shauna is going to restock these as soon as possible in the Illustrated Faith shop. Instead of using ink with them, I wanted to see how acrylic paint worked with them, and instead of stamping directly on the page and committing to it, I decided to stamp on some scrap cardstock that I had and then fussy cut them out. I typed up my journaling on my typewriter and then trimmed it down. I didn't need the full-size card. And then I'm just placing things back where I think I want them to live. I nixed the butterfly patterned paper. I felt like I just couldn't introduce another motif here with the florals and the rainbows and now the stencil. And then I'm using my Illustrated Faith tape runner just to put a teeny tiny little bit of tape on each piece so that I have an idea of where I want it to live, but it's not down permanently yet. I can still manipulate it if I need to. I put down some of the rooted washi tape underneath the patterned paper, layered the letters for my title on top of that, and added a little more washi tape. Next, I'll move on to my stamp stamp. My tab punch, I have really been enjoying including tabs off the side, but I want a double-sided stamp so that it looks good from both sides. So I took a scrap of the library card and punched that out first, and then I'm trying to figure out here which pattern from Isabella's printables will go best, and then I'll just glue them together, one on the front side of the page and then flip it over and put one on the back side. There we go. I'll reinforce that with some more of this washi tape. And then I'm realizing here this is just a lot of paper up at the top that I don't necessarily need. So I'm going to go ahead and just rip that off. And I'm glad that I got a decent tear. And I'm glad that I did that. I really like the texture that the torn edge brings to it. And I really like that I kind of knocked that down a bit. There was just so much pattern and I felt like I didn't really need it. Instead, I added some more of Isabella's florals behind my cluster here, and I'm now working on some custom word fetty. So I used the piece that was included with the rooted stamp set and just stamped that on an edge of some cardstock, cut it out, and glued it down onto my tab. Then I'll go in again with the rooted stamp set and just put some final stamps on my page and then add a date stamp. I recently read a book that I really enjoyed. It's called Reading the Bible with Rabbi Jesus, and the author Lois Tverberg does a great job of pointing out the differences between Jesus's Jewish roots and our Western way of thinking. And so in her book, one of the differences that she notes is language, and how the Hebrew language is just so much more rich and has so much more depth. So I'm journaling in Isaiah 26:3 and noting what she writes about the word peace, shalom. She says it's not just peacefulness and calm, but prosperity and well-being, wholeness and completeness. She says, when Christ promised his disciples, "Shalom I leave with you, my shalom I give you," in John 14:27, she says he had much more in mind than just inner calm. And I really wanted to focus that on my page here today. So I typed out a bit of that excerpt here on this journaling card, and that was just my prayer today, that I would experience that shalom through his spirit. And that's my prayer for you today, too, as we're going through some just totally out of the norm circumstances right now. Despite those circumstances, I pray that you would continue to find your peace in him. That's going to do it for me today. I've got all of the supplies that I used linked down in the video description below. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you soon.